Okay, it looks like maybe we have everyone who's going to be joining us this morning. We may have a few more join us over the next minute or so, but we'll go ahead and get started just to honor everyone's time and allow you to join sessions timely once we are done with this one. But we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Amanda Torres and I work in undergraduate admissions. Thank you for joining Premier 2022. And we have Dr. Trey Cade here who's going to talk to you about our aviation sciences program. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Cade and he will share a lot of great information. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Welcome everyone to Baylor Premier and this session on aviation sciences. I'm Trey Cade. I'm the director of the Aviation Sciences program, and we'll talk a little bit about the program, how it works, and feel free to drop questions in the chat box. We should have some time for questions at the end. All right, so our degree is the Bachelor of Science in Aviation Sciences degree, and within that degree, we have two majors. The first major is Aviation Sciences, and that major is designed for students who want to be pilots. And so we have two concentrations within that, two pilot concentrations within that major for airplane and helicopter pilots. And then our other major is Aviation Administration, where we partner with Baylor's Business School for an interdisciplinary mix of aviation and business school courses for students more interested in kind of the business management side of the aviation industry. So all of the degrees in the College of Arts and Sciences have the same core curriculum. It's a standard core curriculum that covers everything, all the courses that are not the major specific courses. I'm not going to talk about the core curriculum in detail. Certainly, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those. The details of the core curriculum and all the curriculum details for our degrees, our degree plans can be found on our Aviation Sciences website, and you'll see that website address at the end. So for the Aviation Sciences major, here you can see the required courses on top, and then on bottom the elective courses, and you choose 5 of those elective courses to round out your degree. So with the idea that you will get kind of broad exposure to a lot of different topics within the aviation industry. But certainly the core of the Aviation Sciences major is flight training. And so all of the flight training is FAA Part 141 certified. We have our ground school certificate on campus, and so we teach all the ground school courses on campus. And then you go out to the airport for the in-airplane flight training. Again, all FAA certified. So all as a part of the degree, you get your private pilot's license, your instrument rating, your commercial license, your certified flight instructor certification, and then either your multi-engine rating or your certified flight instructor instrument certification. All of the flight training is conducted at the Baylor University Flight Center at the Waco Regional Airport, and is operated under contract by Universal Flight Concepts. They are one of the largest flight training providers in the country. They have flight training, several flight training facilities around the country. They've been doing flight training for 40 years, and they're well versed in collegiate flight training as well. They also do flight training for Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and they've been a very good partner for us in operating the flight school. So the aircraft, the fleet is it's all Tecnam aircraft, so all brand new, right off the assembly line Tecnams. The 2008 is a 2-seater light sport aircraft that we can use for some training. The primary trainer is the 2010 4-seater, and then for multi-engine training we use the 2006 T. And here are pictures of our airplanes out at the Waco Airport, marked up in Baylor colors and logos. We do also have the helicopter concentration, as I mentioned. So the curriculum is identical to the airplane curriculum. The only difference is when you go out to the airport, you are flying helicopters instead of airplanes, but everything else is the same. We do need to let prospective students know that we have a limited number of flight slots we only have a certain capacity for students at the flight school. And so because of that, we have a competitive application and selection process that students go through. So if you apply to Baylor and you indicate aviation sciences as your major, then you will also have to fill out a separate aviation sciences application. And then we choose from those applicants who we are going to offer a flight slot to. Another thing that students need to be aware of that we need to take care of well ahead of time before starting in school is you do have to have an FAA medical certificate, and we want all of our incoming students to get a Class 1 medical certificate. It's something that you're going to have if you're going to fly for a living as a commercial pilot, and so it's something we require students to come in with. It can be a short process, or it can be a very long process, just depending on medical history and the things that the medical examiners are looking for. And so this is something that you want to start well ahead of time to make sure you have that medical certificate before you start school. We require, so for students starting in the fall semester, we require them to have their medical certificate by August 1st. Prior to the start of the fall semester. We do have the 500-hour reduction for the restricted air transport pilot license. So what that means is the FAA says that you have to have 1,500 flying hours to fly for the airlines. But with the Baylor degree, the FAA has certified us to certify our graduates for a 500-hour reduction off of that requirement. So with the Baylor degree, you only need 1,000 hours to get to the airlines. So you will get to the airlines sooner. We do have partnerships with several regional airlines. Regional airline is going to be your first step to an airline job. And so these airlines send representatives to campus to meet with our students, talk with our students, recruit our students. With some of these airlines, you can sign on as early as your sophomore year, pass a basic interview, and you have a conditional job offer waiting for you after graduation. So it just makes for a very easy transition to that first airline job. But you don't have to sign on with one of these airlines. You can apply to any airline that you want. The airlines are desperate for pilots because there's a huge pilot shortage right now. And our job placement rate for our pilot graduates is 100%. So our other major is aviation administration. And so you can see here the mix of aviation courses on the left and business and management courses on the right that again make up this interdisciplinary major. It's no flight training involved. It's just classroom courses for the aviation administration major. So a little bit about what makes Baylor unique kind of in the world of collegiate aviation. With Baylor being a larger university, you kind of get the whole college experience, lots of big school opportunities, student activities, student organizations, traditions, all kinds of activities on campus, fraternities, sororities, intramural sports, club sports, Big 12 sports. So a lot of things going on, a lot of ways to get plugged into campus life. Baylor is certainly not the only larger school that has an aviation program, but those other schools tend to not be Christian universities. And so that would be a discriminator for students looking for that environment. Conversely, there are other Christian universities and colleges that have aviation programs, but they tend to be much smaller than Baylor, so they don't offer the big school opportunities that Baylor does. So when you look at kind of the narrow scope of colleges that offer aviation programs, we're somewhat unique in that we kind of have a foot in both of those worlds. Baylor is very much committed to the residential college experience. It's one of the reasons why we require freshmen to live on campus. We want to build an on-campus community, and one of the ways that we do that in aviation sciences is this year we've started an aviation sciences community in the residence halls where aviation majors have the opportunity to live together if that's something they want to choose. We have you'll probably not find at another school as low of a instructor to student ratio as we have at our flight school. One flight instructor, 4 students. So that means our students are able to fly as often as they need to. Our students are guaranteed a minimum of 4 flight training events per week, with the goal of each flight course being completed in 1 semester. And so what we're seeing by being able to maintain that flight schedule, our students are completing their flight training by the end of their junior year, which means now that our seniors have the opportunity to work part-time as a flight instructor at the flight school. So now not only are they being paid to fly, but also accumulating additional hours towards that 1,000 hours that they need to get to the airlines. We utilize a lot of faculty with industry expertise, which I think is another kind of unique aspect of our program. I'll give you a couple of quick examples. Joel Martinez, he runs the Waco Regional Airport. He's the airport director. He teaches our aviation management and airport management classes. A perfect fit for teaching airport management, a guy who runs an airport. We have an NTSB aircraft accident investigator who teaches our aircraft accident investigation and prevention course, as well as our aviation safety course. We have Central Texas only master flight instructor that teaches classes. We have a practicing lawyer that teaches aviation law. And so we have faculty who are bringing real world experience into the classroom. And then we feel like we're large enough to be a strong, healthy program. We've got about 100 students in the program, but small enough to where we still get to know all of our students individually, which is something that is important to us. Some ratings real quick. U.S. News and World Report, rank orders, colleges and universities nationwide. Baylor's number 75. But when you look at just the schools on that list that offer aviation, we're number 3. Best value schools, we're number 82. Number 3 in collegiate aviation. Best undergraduate teaching, Baylor's number 33. Number 2 in collegiate aviation. And first year experiences, Baylor is number 15 and number 2 in collegiate aviation. And then the Wall Street Journal rank orders colleges and universities nationwide based on student engagement, how active are students in the classroom with their professors, and Baylor is number 4 nationally on that list. So that's kind of a brief overview of the program. So certainly if you'll have questions, I'd be glad to answer those. Looking at the chat, looks like I already answered the question, how often per week do students fly? So minimum of 4 flight events per week. However, some students, if they choose, they can fly more than that. We'll have some students that will fly 5 or 6 times a week if that's something they want to do, but guaranteed a minimum of 4. And then can you minor, the other question, can you minor in aviation administration while majoring in aviation sciences? So we do not have a minor in aviation administration. We do have a minor in aviation sciences, but as an aviation administration major, you would not be able to minor in aviation sciences just because all the courses are basically overlap with one another. So so that answers those questions. So if anyone else has any more questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Okay, so one question, aviation program is competitive. So the question is, what would the average SAT or GPA be? So I'm not gonna pin down a number because what we try to do is we try to take a whole person view. So we will certainly factor in GPA, your class rank, test scores if you've got them. We'll look at your transcript. We'll look at your recommendation letters. We'll look at your essay questions, both the Baylor essay questions, and then there's a aviation specific essay question that is on the aviation sciences application. And so we look at that very closely. So we will look at all the information and try to make a kind of a whole person evaluation and decision. So that's why I can't really say, you know, here's kind of the GPA or test score that we're looking for, because we'll kind of factor everything in together.
Dr. Cade, there's a few more questions in the Q&A as well.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, okay, I didn't open that one. All right. So if you're an aviation management or the aviation administration major, could you still get your pilot's license at Baylor? So flying is not a part of the aviation administration major. We do, Baylor students who are not aviation sciences majors can do flight training at our flight school on a space available basis. So the aviation sciences majors are going to get priority. And if there's any room or capacity available at the flight school, then other students at Baylor, including aviation administration students, could do flight training. And that's just kind of handled on a semester by semester basis. What is the ratio of women to men in the program? So that's a good question, because aviation is historically an extremely male-dominated industry. If you look at the airline pilot statistics, professional pilots, it's about 5% female. And in our program, we have about 20%. We have about 20% female in our program, which is probably low, or sounds low probably by a lot of industry and major standards, but for aviation, that's actually fairly high, and actually much higher than most other college aviation programs. Other than grades, what can high school students, how many years is the program? So it is a 4-year program. As I said earlier, our flight training can be completed in 3 years. So the flight training will not prevent you from completing the program in 4 years. And so the program is definitely designed to get you done on time in 4 years. Other than grades, what can high school students do to become more competitive to get into the program? So certainly grades are going to be important. As I said, recommendation letters can help. So if you can get good recommendation letters, let's see what else. So spend a lot of time on the essay questions, because we really look at the essay questions, how you answer those. So make sure you put a lot of thought and time and effort into answering those questions. You know, because there are mandatory essay questions and there are optional essay questions. And if you don't answer the optional essay question, for example, that tells us something about you. And, you know, I've had answers to essay questions that are like 1 or 2 sentences, which, you know, tells me you're really not putting a lot of effort into your essay response. So putting some effort in there, I think will help as well. Visiting campus if you can. So attending campus events like this, campus visits, things like that, having a foot on campus and interacting with Baylor in person. That's something that we will, take a look at, because that indicates, that you're serious about possibly attending Baylor. So that will factor in as well. What does the application timeline look like? Amanda, do you want to answer that? Since that's more of a admissions
Yes, of
question.
course. Yes, of course. So our application goes live August 1 every year for the upcoming application cycle. So as a rising senior, you'd be able to apply as early as August 1. Our first deadline is November 1. We highly encourage students to try to meet a November 1 application deadline to not only apply to Baylor, but complete their files. So submit all your academic information you're going to send, your high school transcript, and if you decide to choose to apply with test scores, then you would want to send those by that date as well. And then I'd recommend just exactly what Dr. Cade is saying, submit a resume, recommendation letters, all of that extra information helps us to get to know you a little bit more, because we do the same thing for admission to the university, as we want to do a holistic review of your application file. So the more that you submit to us, the more we get to know about you, then that's going to definitely help in the process. Now, we do accept about 3/4 of our incoming class with the November 1 deadline. And so I would encourage that everyone works towards that in their senior year. But if you miss that deadline for any reason, or decide, to choose to apply with the second one, that deadline is February 1. And we actually have a notification deadline of April 10th. So we're actually right now really close to that, of finishing admissions decisions with everyone who's applied and completed their file by one of those two. So November 1 or February 1. But again, I can't stress November 1 enough to say, do things early, make sure you get everything in. That way you can work through the process for admission, and then work through the application process for aviation sciences, since they have their separate application as well.
Yeah, and just to follow on to that, so there's a question asked about, is there a difference to aviation submitting that application early? And the answer to that is definitely yes, because those early applications are going to get the first look to get offered a flight slot. So those early applications get that first opportunity. If you wait till January, February to submit your application, there may or may not be any flight slots available at that point for applicants. So it definitely helps to do that earlier rather than later, as Amanda said. See one other question in the chat. Can you double major in aviation sciences and aviation administration? No, you cannot double major, again, because there are so many classes that are common in between those two majors that you can't really double major in both of those. Let's see, question, when do we apply to the aviation program specifically? So that will go along with your Baylor application. So it's done with your Baylor application as a follow-on process after you submit that. So you start with the Baylor application, and then you will do the aviation sciences application. How far is the flight line from the main campus? Is there a regular shuttle? There is not good, reliable shuttle transportation. We definitely recommend that students have their own transportation, have their own car to get to and from the airport. There are other options, but there are no really good options to do that. So having your car is the best way to do it. And it's about a 20 to 30-minute drive to the airport from campus. Freshmen are allowed to have vehicles. In fact, for aviation sciences, we encourage our freshmen to have their own vehicles because, again, that's going to be the best way for you to get to and from the airport. Let's see, if you've been accepted to Baylor under a different college, what would the process look like to change majors into aviation? I don't know if, Amanda, you want to touch on that. I believe they can contact their admissions counselor and request a change of major to aviation.
Yes, and then go through the process with you for the application. But up until May 24th, I believe, you can still contact our office. Once we get to that date, then it has to go through your advisor. And so if anyone's thinking about that, I'd say do that soon, because we want to make sure that we get you aligned into the correct program for orientation and registration this summer with advisors and with the departments and everything. So you'd want to do that as soon as possible. And I think we are up in our time. I think we got all our questions. I see one last question that popped in. Dr. Cade, if you want to answer that one, but just to honor everyone's time and help us get into the next session that you might be choosing to go to, we'll end with this last question.
So what would it mean for a prospective aviation student to already have flight hours or private pilot's license prior to the program? So if you come in with your private pilot's license, you will get credit for that. You will get credit for your private pilot's license and the private pilot ground school. And so you would just start in the next phase of flight training, which would be the instruments flight course. If you've done flight training, if you have flying hours, but you don't have a license, that being a Part 141 program, we're not going to be able to probably give you a lot of credit for those hours. So you will largely be starting over. We can give you some credit depending on if your flight training was Part 61 or Part 141. But you'll probably largely be starting over if you come in with hours, but you don't have your license yet.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining, asking great questions. We appreciate the engagement and the interest in the program. Hopefully this leads to you connecting with Dr. Cade outside of Premier and work through that process with him. Dr. Cade, thank you so much for joining us this morning to provide this information.
You bet. If y'all have any more questions, you can email us with the email address that's on the screen.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Enjoy
Thanks.
the rest of the sessions.